right in front of. There you go. So speak to Mrs. Burns.
Why did you come to the first school?
Why did I come to the first school?
Yeah.
Because it's a bit complicated for you, but mortgage rates had gone up, so my house was costing me more and more and more, and so I needed to get back to work. And there weren't any jobs in the state schools, so I went to the Yellow Pages and looked for all the private schools, and I got an interview here, and Mr. Long's mum gave me the job.
Wow. Connie?
When did you start teaching?
Oh, well, I started teaching in, oh golly, that's a long time ago. 1974, I think. When I first started teaching, I taught at Cherry Grove in Chester near Sainsbury's. And then I had my girls, and I taught for 6 years, and I had 6 years out with my girls when they were little. And then I came here in 1985.
So this was your second school?
This was my second school.
Second and then the only two the whole
Yeah,
career
the
then?
only two.
Fantastic.
And I stayed here because it's such a wonderful place.
Great stuff.
Really? Oh, sorry. Go on, Isabel.
How old were you when you started teaching?
Oh, golly.
Golly.
30, when I first started teaching, I would be 21. Younger than these two, but I'm much older now.
Go on, Millie, you go.
How much names can you remember?
Well, the names of my first class, are they the ones you'd like to make? There was a little girl called Julia Smith, there was Rebecca Gibbs, there was Helen Bott, Claudia Crow, and Claudia had a family where all the children had a name beginning with C, so all their initials were CC. Her sister was Camilla Crow, she was Claudia Crow, and her brother was Clive Crow, all from him. And there's a boy called David, now I remember him, but I can't remember his surname. I think they were farmers, and his sister was the one who, when we built the new classrooms, the doors were very sharp on the edges, and his sister got her finger caught in the door, and it took the top off her finger, and she had to have it stitched back on again. So I remember her, his sister more than. And there's Stuart Pickering, is this one here, and he had a twin called Belinda, but she was at the Queen's School. And then this is Miles Cornelius, who was a funny little boy, and for years and years and years he had a tiny little blazer that was really too small for him. And then he got a brand new blazer. He was so smart. And the day after, we went on a school trip, and he had a nosebleed. It went all over his brand new blazer.
Oh.
Such a shame. So I always remember Miles. And also, you know when there's a mad dash for books, and some of them are a bit tatty, and everybody wants the nice ones. He was always the one who would say, "Oh, I don't mind. I'll have the scruffy one." So I was quite fond of Matt. He was a nice little boy. I don't remember all the names. This little girl was called Alexandra. And all I remember was that her dad was Irish and he was a doctor. And this is Nicola, the one with the horses that I still see sometimes. There was a little boy here called David Fudge, who was a bit of a comedian. And he'd had a broken arm in the past. And that was the thing that everybody always told you. And I think that little girl was called Helen.
It's pretty impressive that Mrs. Burns can remember all of those children's names.
31 years ago.
31 years ago, yeah.
Well,
Think how many other children she's seen throughout that time. So every year she has a new class, and that was 31 years ago that she's remembered those children's names.
I don't think I can remember all the children in my first class.
No.
That was 2 years ago.
Do you know Mr. Gervin's Facebook page still says that he's a secondary school?
Wishful thinking. No.
Oh, you'd hate it.
Go on, Anna.
What was your favourite subject that you taught?
Oh, always maths. I love maths. I love maths because it was logical and it was sensible and it had rules and it had right answers. And also, like as always, I was good at maths. So I was happy doing that.
Ruby?
Do you miss anyone in particular?
Oh, I miss all the children and I miss all the staff because they were my friends. I still see some of them. But it's having a social group where you belong. And I miss that because nowadays I'm making lots of new friends, but I'm always the new person. So it's a bit of a change. So I miss all of you lot. But not enough to come back.
What did your classroom look like?
Well, it looked like that, but it was about, no exaggeration, half the size of this one. You cut it off down the middle, that was it. Just a tiny little classroom. And as I said, there were pegs all down the wall, and all the children's coats were in the classroom, and all their indoor and outdoor shoes were there, and everything, and PE days and things, and swimming days. All the bags were in the classroom. There was nowhere else to put them. So it was very small, and it had windows on both sides, but frosted glass like you have in the bathroom, facing on the playground, and clear glass facing on the other side. And there was a climbing frame just outside. And it was the middle of 3 classrooms, and it had big doors, so you could go straight into each of the other classrooms if you wanted to. It was much, much smaller than this.
Elizabeth,
Space now.
have you got a question?
How long did it take you to mark everyone's work before going home?
Ages and ages to begin with, but when I first came here, my little girl, my younger daughter, was only 2.5. So I needed to get home quite quickly, so I used to always take all my marking home, and I'd give the girls their tea and collect them from school and things, and then I would do my marking afterwards. But it always took me a long time, always, because you have to look properly, you can't do it quickly. I'm sure these two spend hours and hours with the marking.
Too long.
This is why I like maths, it's quick to mark maths. With the English, you've got loads of reading to do.
Completely agree. Who's next?
Go on.
Oliver.
How long was their playtime?
Do you know, the playtimes were about the same as when I left. I think you've changed playtimes round now. But as far as I remember, it was always 10:30 until about 10 to 11. It sometimes went to more like 11 o'clock. It stretched a little bit if the sun was shining. The teacher on duty would sort of not ring the bell straight away. And we always rang the same bell that you've got now. That hasn't changed. And then lunchtime was the same because there wasn't room in the dining room for everybody to eat together, so it was a staggered lunchtime. But when I first came, the teachers had to help serve the lunch. We didn't have dinner ladies. The school secretary would help to serve the dinners, and we would help to serve the dinners. And then we were the ones on playground duty every day as well. So teachers didn't have as many playtimes because we were busy on duty.
James?
How many buildings were there?
Not as many as there are now. We still had this building, but it's been improved a lot and modernised. A lot of things have been changed because originally, where those notice boards are, there were windows. And they blocked the windows because all you could see really was the wall outside and the walls of the houses next door. So they blocked those windows off and turned them into notice boards. So this building was here. The middle building was much older. It wasn't that building. It was the same sort of idea of 3 classrooms, but it was smaller, much smaller. And it was black. And it was getting a bit tatty when I first came. We didn't have the 2 buildings at the bottom, the ones used for science and music. They weren't there at all, so the field was bigger. And the reception classrooms were there just the same, but they didn't have a garden around the back. And of course the bungalow wasn't there at all, because Mr. Longman built the bungalow for his mum, who used to live in the house. And she didn't stay there very long. And now we've got the kindergarten and the IT suite and everything.
Sebastian?
Will you ever come back to the first?
Oh.
Only on little visits like this, because if anybody says, do I want to come back and do some supply teaching and look after some classes when their teachers are away or something, I just say no. I don't usually get things to sentence before I say no. Done it. I've did it for 30 years now. But I like coming on visits like this. This is really nice. And I popped in last week to see Mr. and Mrs. Longman just for half an hour, and that was nice. And you know, Mrs. Longman had her 70th birthday, and she had a little tea party on the Sunday, and I came to that as well. So tiny little visits, it's nice to see all the changes. And of course, when you open the new hall, hopefully they'll invite me to come see them.
You know you're
it's
doing
not
the
raining, I
marking.
might come on sports day.
You know you're doing the marking today, don't you?
Oh yes, I could do that. Actually, the marking I quite enjoy. It is maths. I'm not doing the English.
How long did you stay at the first?
30 years. I don't know whether I should count it completely as 30 because the last year I only did 3.5 days. I used to go home on Thursday lunchtime and I had all day Friday. But 30 years.
Diego?
How many boy teachers
How many boy teachers
were there?
were there? There really weren't any when I came. There's all ladies. As you can see, all ladies. There was a gentleman called Jack who did a bit of gardening when I first came, and he used to do football with the boys because they didn't think ladies could do football, so he did all the football, and we just did netball and rounders and things like that. And then we had a care caretaker called Mr. Swan. He lived in a flat at the top of the house, but he wasn't a teacher. And then it was a long, long time before we had a man teacher. And I've got 2.
Go on, Diego.
How many people were in the 995?
Let's see.
Wouldn't there?
Oh, how many people were in school around about 1995?
Oh my
So I know it's going to be quite hard to answer.
Well, when I first came in 1985, there were about 240 altogether, and they didn't have a kindergarten. And I remember because my girls were at Cherry Grove, and there were 240 children there. So it was about the same size. So it was quite big. But numbers change because sometimes more babies are born in a certain year than others. So sometimes the numbers go up and sometimes they go down. So all over those years the numbers were like that.
Johnny, do you have a question?
How many classes have you taught?
Oh, I must have taught 30 altogether. And then I did a few little bits of teaching Latin to other classes, so if that counts, a few extra bits here.
What about year groups? How many year groups did you
I
teach?
started off with year 4, and I had year 4 for a long, long time, at least 15 years. And then I moved to year 5 when the year 5 teacher retired. And then 2 years I did a year 6 class. When there were 2 year 6 classes, I would step up and do a year 6 class, and then drop back to year 5. So the last class I taught was year 6, but I taught year 4 more than anything.
James, do you have a question?
How many people have packed lunch?
Oh, there weren't as many packed lunches when I first came. In fact, when I first came, everybody had school lunches. And Mrs. Longman was very, very strict about children eating their lunch and having really good manners. So everybody had to have a cloth napkin to wipe their fingers with. And some of the children who didn't really want to eat all their dinner, the bits they didn't like, they would hide them in their napkins. So some of the napkins were a bit not very nice. But no, in the early days, nobody had packed lunches at all. That was it. But there was a slow table in the dining room for children who were slow eaters or who didn't like to eat their lunch very quickly. And if you were a slow eater, you had to sit at that slow table. I don't think you have that anymore, do you? Don't encourage you to eat too fast.
Who was your favourite student?
Oh my goodness. Well, I think when I was talking about them, it was obvious that I still remember that little boy called Miles Cornelius, because he was the sort of little boy that you just can't help liking. Because he never minded about anything. He didn't mind having the tatty book when other people were making a fuss about having a new one. And he didn't mind that his first blazer was so tiny he could hardly get it on. And he didn't even make a fuss when his nose bled over the brand new one. He just would get on with anything. He was always the one who would, oh, I'll do it. You know? And I like that. And there were lots of children through my teaching career who were like that, and he thought, yeah, he's going to go far, because he's willing to fit in with people.
Good attitude.
Good attitude, that's what it is.
When did you become a pretty head teacher?
Oh, golly, difficult to remember. Probably about 10 years ago, I think. But I was never the deputy, I was the assistant, which is slightly different. It would mean that if the headmistress was, although not in a big bomb, I wouldn't have to be headmistress. I wouldn't have to take the place because I was just the assistant. I could step back and then have brought somebody else. No, I wouldn't have liked that, see, because I wouldn't have had to teach a class anymore. That's right, yes. And that's the bit I liked.
James?
Did the children ever tell you jokes?
Oh, yes. And the trouble was, they very rarely told me a joke I hadn't heard before. So, because you hear them all, and it's very difficult to sort of laugh. Some of them are very not funny. But I would usually sort of manage a little grin and chuckle. But I was known for being the one that told the jokes. So again, my favourite children are the ones who laugh first. If they didn't laugh at my jokes, not too keen.
Where was the lunch hall?
The lunch hall was where it is now. Still the same. It's lasted very, very well, all things considered.
Yeah.
Go on then, you.
Who was the head teacher in the
When I first came.
1995?
In 1985, it was Mrs. Longman, technically, Mr. Longman Senior's mom. She was the one in charge. But this lady here, Mrs. Marsh, she was sort of the head of the teachers. She was the longest standing one, she'd been here the longest. She was amazing. She had gorgeous hair, absolutely beautiful. And she never washed it or did it herself. She just had it cut now and again. But she never did her own hair. And it always looked absolutely perfect. I don't know how she did it, but she was amazing.
So after Mrs. Longman,
After Mrs. Longman, we had, oh dear.
was Reverend
There was a
Longman.
lady called, yes, Reverend Longman was in charge for a while, but he wasn't a teacher really, so we didn't want to do that. And then we had Mrs. Smith, who was the head for a while. And then we had a man called Mr. Eady. And then we had Mr. Ellis,
Mr.
who
Ellis.
was absolutely lovely. We all liked Mr. Ellis. And then we had Mrs. Denton. And now we've got Mrs.
Davis.
Oh dear, yes. See, this is why you have to retire, because your memory goes. Yes. Mind you, I was as bad as that when people used to come in the classroom and I was still teaching, because a teacher I'd known for 20 years would walk in the door and I'd say, oh, hello, Mrs. And the children would have to help me out.
Yeah, she can still remember all the names of her first class,
You see,
which is
long-term
amazing.
memory
Long-term
goes,
memory, yeah.
It goes, but it's not yet.
Probably the last two questions then, Sebastian.
How many boy head teachers have there been reversed?
Well, if you count Reverend Longman, that would be one. And then there would be Mr. Eady, but Mr. Eady was only here for 2 terms. And then we have Mr. Ellis for quite a long time. And Mr. Ellis sometimes comes to events. He came to the end of year service when I was retiring. And we see all the teachers rush up and say, oh, hello, Mr. Ellis.
Aw.
Because we're very fond of him.
Ready.
And he'd been the head teacher
Beyond
in St Helens of the school where the present Mr. Longman went when he was a little boy.
Aw.
Really?
And that's how they knew him.
Wow.
There's lots of connections with St Helens. Very spooky.
Okay, last one.
Which teachers taught which class?
Oh, well, I taught year 4 for a long time. There was a lady called Mrs. Davis who taught what they called the exam class. So some of them were year 4, some of them were year 3, they're a bit of a mixed class. Mrs. Marsh, who was the sort of head, taught year 6. There was a lady called Mrs. Mitchell who taught year 5. There was a lady called Mrs. Cook who lived just down the road from school who taught reception. There was a lady called Mrs. Cross who taught reception. There was a Mrs. Povey who taught some of the little ones as well, and Mrs. Clifford and Mrs. Smith. And they taught sort of middle infants.
Mrs. Burns, can I read a few things to you? So, children, what we did when Miss Burnley and I started planning these sessions is we made a questionnaire, a form that children that used to come to the school who've now grown up, so that adults could fill in, the alumni. And one of the questions was, can you remember any of your teachers? So can I read it? I'll just read 3 responses to you, Mrs. Burns. So it's the question, can you remember any of your teachers? Mrs. Burns, she was a teacher that I still speak about today. I also had Mrs. Lawrenson, Mrs. Davis, Mrs. Wilcock and Mrs. Price. And I remember Mrs. Roach, but she didn't teach me. And the second person put, I loved first. It built up my confidence and gave me the belief that I could achieve anything I wanted to. Mrs. Burns was my favourite teacher and really inspired me. I wanted to be a primary school teacher. And guess what I am today? And then this last one. Mrs. Burns, I loved her, but she could be very scary when she's young.
There you go.
So there are 3 responses. And isn't it amazing? I think when you're in the crew, you don't quite realise that you can have an effect on the young people that flower into grown-ups and become these amazing things. You don't quite realise how your legacy will last in their
You
lives.
don't. Amazing.
So I just thought I'd share that with you.
Thank you very much.
You're all right. Brilliant.